So Doug Saunders, who's written a book on his like it basically is open borders ideology, and has written countless columns in the Globe and Mail on that. He kind of personifies this what I call neoliberal open borders ideology, where they believe that no nation has any. Well, Justin Trudeau's infamous remark that Canada is the world's first post-national state with no core identity, that would sum up in a sentence Doug Saunders' view of the world. And so why not just let unlimited numbers of people come here because they're going to increase the size of our economy? Well, first of all, one small problem there. When you bring in a large-scale, low-skilled migration, people are struggling at the bottom of the labor market. Guess what? They actually pull down average wealth in the country. They might increase aggregate demand, that is to say, like the top line GDP number. But when you divide it by the denominator, the number of people coming in with increasingly low incomes, like, living 24 foreign students sharing an apartment and doing Uber Eats for their income, guess what? You're actually becoming relatively poorer as a country as your per capita GDP declines.
And
And
it's
what Doug
not.
Saunders also said in that exchange with me is, he said, there's no such thing as illegal migration. I mean, I pointed out to him the black and on white law of the Canadian Immigration Refugee Protection Act, which says if you overstay as a temporary resident, if you stay beyond your authorized period in your visa, you are inadmissible to Canada. You are here illegally, and you are subject to removal, to deportation. This is not complicated. This is the ABCs of immigration policy. If you don't have rules like that, then you do effectively have open borders.
Well, these are the folks that would tell you no one's illegal on stolen land, but get upset if you walked onto their Rosedale property or Outremont property, etc.
Or
Uh,
Annex or Cabbagetown in his case, I'm sure.
yes, they would be very upset and call the police. Uh, the the idea, though, that it doesn't bring down wages. It's not people at the top. It's not folks like Doug Saunders who are going to suffer by bringing in large scale, low wage workers. It's people at the bottom, both those who are coming and
Yeah.
those already here. You
Can
know,
I make
I live
can
in
I
downtown Toronto. I see the
Yeah.
Mad Max phalanx of bikes all over the city with people competing to get that Uber Eats order to deliver food to someone who doesn't want to leave their condo. It is a real struggle, and you see this each and every day. I doubt this is why uh, those folks came to Canada. It wasn't the dream that my parents had coming here. Hey, I can ride a bike in Toronto in winter to deliver somebody their food. They were hoping for more. And guess what? The people that they're competing for jobs and housing and everything else are hoping for more. It's the people at the bottom that get hurt. And that's what folks like Saunders don't get because they don't see it unless they talk to the gardener.
Yeah, Saunders is typical of the Century Initiative. That these are the folks that recommended that Canada should rush to a population of 100 million through very high immigration levels, and they're almost all very wealthy. People in the financial services industry are adjacent to it, and for folks like that, they benefit from infinite low-skilled migration because it means they have no trouble getting a gardener or somebody to shovel their sidewalk or a nanny for the kids or a caregiver for the parents or the food delivery services and all of that. All of those kinds of services are like dog walkers. All of that, it becomes available to them. They're not competing, right? If you're making seven figures working in private equity, or you're making high six figures in like a top public sector job, you're not competing with massive numbers of new entrants at the bottom end of the labor market. But you're if a blue collar Canadian, let's say somebody who worked hard to come here as an immigrant, and you're struggling to get ahead, and suddenly you're competing with hundreds of thousands of new people in the labor market. Guess what? Wages do freeze, and they don't keep up with inflation. And you're absolutely right. For the newcomers, they had an idea of the Canadian dream. Well, the Canadian dream wasn't coming here on a study permit to do 10 months at a dodgy diploma mill that has a MOU with a Conestoga college while you're living, is sleeping in shifts because you can't afford rent, under pressure from the family to make as much income as you can here, to send remittances back home. By the way, partly to pay off the debt to the immigration agent who got your dodgy diploma in the first place. This is not a well-ordered immigration system, particularly in a country with a housing scarcity crisis and a healthcare access crisis. So, unfortunately, what Trudeau did with all of this, with the encouragement of people like Doug Saunders and the Century Initiative, was to turn the broad public consensus in favor of legal and well-regulated immigration upside down. And now we have 3/4 of Canadians saying immigration is not working in the country's interests.